So, welcome to this last hour of this course. So, we ended the last lecture by putting forward an example of the transformative process which the basis of which and the components of which we have been discussing throughout. Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, uh, and his process. So, just to sum up, we are talking, I am taking Gandhi as an example because he is still not in mythology, he has a history. All his actions were an open book to everybody. He has left his experiments in 100 volumes of writing, not as a book, as I said, and there are another 5,000 books on him and millions of papers, and he is still a matter of research. As Albert Einstein said on his 70th birthday, that coming generations will scarcely believe that such a man walked in flesh and blood. So, Gandhi still remains an enigma, and we are talking about Gandhi the man, not the politics. So, we can sum up his, let us look at his self, what we know. These are the things which describe Gandhi. If you ask anybody to bring in few words when you are talking about Mahatma Gandhi, they will, most of them, even the children would know all this. And above all is human concern, his need to connect. We have been talking about needs to step beyond the self and empathy. So, Gandhi stood at this juncture, and so this whole example of Gandhi is not to tell you that you should follow Gandhi, you should follow yourself. As Buddha in his last days was asked by Anand, his cousin and his disciple also, that you have told so many things. If I ask you to sum it up and leave one simple message, Buddha said, Up Deepo Bhav, be your own light. Gandhi much later said, be the change you want to see in the world. So, the change which we keep experiencing in the world with external pressures which are transitory sometime. So, Gandhi did bring change in his life willfully. Now, whether other people followed it through the will or because of the circumstances of India's freedom movement is a matter of a different discussion. But the fact of the matter was that Gandhi, according to Erik Erikson, a famous psychoanalyst who came to India and tried to analyze Gandhi's first strike which he did in Ahmedabad, he described two words about Gandhi: actuality and mutuality. Broadly, it can be understood as Gandhi moved towards self-actualization, he also took the world along with him in a mutual process. So, we live in the society, we know the biology of it by now, we know the psychology of it, we know the socio-politics of it. So, Gandhi brought in self-actualization through a very, very conscious, well decided process, through continuous hammering, through the changes he brought in his life, and in the process changed the world around him. We know about his life, we will just take one aspect of it in the last lecture. He was born as a fourth child to a third, he had two brothers and a sister. Out of his father was a prime minister in Porbandar, Karamchand Gandhi. Mother was Putli Bai, who was very, very religious, ascetic woman, very strong willed, who could do fasts for days together without eating. And he was an average child, naughty as anybody is. He experimented with lot of things which all teenagers do, like smoking and eating meat, which was a ban in his family. So, he was sort of rebel in his childhood. Also, but at the same time, he was very, very socially anxious, easily taken in by powerful people, got married very early at 13 years of age. Now, you should look at the seeds which were going in. Married early, later on he opposed child marriage, from a mother who was very strong willed, at least in her religious rituals, father who was a man of justice, being a prime minister, and Gandhi went on small childhood experiences, like once he told a lie and he felt so guilty that he wrote a letter to his father. His father did not punish him for speaking a lie. Probably that was the first lesson of non-violence he got from his father, and also a lesson that he should not be telling a lie. So, very few people can actually maintain this throughout the life, but Gandhi was one. People can blame him, his opponents may blame, but his opponents also do not criticize his transformational skills and his honesty. They criticize him for his politics. So, additionally, he had a lot of fear, and he used to sleep with lights open and in a continuous squabble with Kasturba, who was his age, in fact 6 months elder to Gandhi. There was a the boy who was untouchability, as you know, is a scourge, was a scourge in India, and there was this childhood playmate called Uka. Every time he used to play, he used to get not punished but reprimanded, and he was forced to take bath, and so that probably kept in Gandhi's mind till he actually fought against untouchability and got the temples opened up much later. So, and then he went to England to study law against the wishes of his community. At that time was the first time when he asserted his will. His mother gave him 3 vows that he would not eat meat, not take wine, not befriend an English woman. And that was probably one of the changes which was happening under external circumstances. Because once Gandhi reached there, he could have done all these things. Nobody would have known. There was no internet and no GPS location or mobile or Facebook to track and trace. But he kept this vows to mother and did not do any of these things. So, he may have been pushed for a change not to do all these things, but his will kept him from doing all these things. That was the first lesson of accountability, taking one's own responsibility. I am just telling you the whole process of how Gandhi changed. Rather, he transformed, because each of these changes which he brought in himself persisted for life. So, once he decided not to tell a lie after his father did not punish him, he probably never told a lie. His life was, as I said, was a very open book right from South African days. So, he studied there, he came back, he met few people who changed his spiritual outlook, but he was such a socially anxious person that the law practice did not pick up. In fact, he fainted first time probably when he appeared in front of the judge, and he returned the money to the client. Imagine this happening in this era. One incident which probably also would have gone into, so the point of transformation had to come later, but all this the edifice was being built. His brother pushed him to go to a British officer to plead for some favor, which Gandhi was not agreeing to, but for his brother he went there. He probably knew the officer from England, but he was badly humiliated. So, Gandhi came back. He wanted to protest at that time, and this is I am talking of 1891 or something around that time. But he decided not to even go and plead for wrong things. So, right from his childhood, he had these seeds going in, and then he got an offer from South Africa. He went to South Africa, and that famous incident which we all know happened on almost the 9th day of his arrival, when he was thrown out of the train, and in spite of carrying a first class ticket. That night we will discuss later on in this lecture. Next day also, and there were multiple occasions in South Africa where Gandhi felt extremely humiliated, even physically assaulted to the point of almost being dead. But by that time he had decided to be non-violent, and he never retaliated with physical violence. There were occasions when he could have, he was a young man after all. So, he stayed back in South Africa, decided to fight for the rights of Indians, and he saw the fragmented, disjointed Indian community, brought them together. They stood up, underwent many of these protests, went to jail, and then he came to India in 1915. And when he came here, he found that the leaders were all elite English speaking people, the masses was downtrodden. So somehow he could at that point of time identify himself with the masses. That was another big change, and which continued till his death. He somehow had this feeling that this country is mine, these people are mine. So when you don't have hatred and violence with people who are your own, and gave a different direction to the whole freedom movement, which involved the masses, which Gandhi was on to give them a training of non-violence and dispossession and all. People followed Gandhi in different measures. It was difficult to follow Gandhi, and Gandhi probably himself could not touch the ideals that he had set up for himself, and he always said that if you meet all your idols, you will not strive. So, but he kept trying. There was this Chauri Chaura movement, and the Chauri Chaura incident in civil disobedience movement in 22. In 21 he was jailed after that, where few people burnt a police station in Gorakhpur. So Gandhi took back the movement against the opinion of lot many leaders, but he said the country is not ready for a non-violent struggle. 10 years later, when he did a Dandi march, that salt march, he walked 348 kilometers in 24 days to break the British law of salt control. The whole country was non-violent. And then again after 10 years, in 1942, he called for Quit India. That was largely non-violent, and following that India became free. But he was not just fighting the freedom movement with non-violence. He was out to change the whole outlook of this country, almost offer a new civilizational way of living. He could have taught like many other leaders, but the great thing about Gandhi was he never preached what he did not practice. So he would first do it himself, provide a model, and then ask other people to follow if they wanted. And there are huge many incidents, there are simple things which he did in his life. One of the famous stories was that a mother brought somebody to Gandhi, a child, and says that Gandhiji, he eats, takes a lot of sugar, so please tell him. He said, you come after a month. And when the mother brought the child after a month, Gandhi told him, don't eat sugar. So mother was like, wow, you could have told me a month before. He said, no, I was eating it at that time. So now I have stopped it, now I can tell. Now you can say this is high moral ground, but it was not about high morality. Because Gandhi had almost people who have met him, people who have written about him. Nobody in this country could say that Gandhi had an ego, or he was trying the one-upmanship, or he was trying to say his superiority. It was a simple, he was experimenting in his head, and he was offering a new mode of living, and the world was looking at us. World was looking at us. You read the American writings of that time, you will know, and they have really looked at Mahatma Gandhi, that the way he used to change, and the world, but suddenly he was killed. He was earning his death in the process, because he was going against whatever was retrogressive in the society. Although he was criticizing technology at one end, but those were the different reasons. He tried to unite people through the common threads of religion, the common thread of humanity, and offering them a constructive way of living. I use the word resource activation. If you remember, Gandhi was activating the resources. He wrote a book called Hind Swaraj in 1909 on a ship deck with both hands. He had almost spelled out the problems of this country, but he never came back and asked the people to change it. He himself first changed it, And the biggest thing he said, that unless you have self respect, like I was telling you about the belief that it's in me, he was trying to raise the self respect and using tools like prayer, like charkha, something which would bring in a common message. And it was very well known, and that whichever area of country he would go, people would identify with him, they would uh, think that he is mine, although there was always an opposition. So, where was these qualities coming from? They were not coming because Gandhi was genetically different. Why I am saying Gandhi's model is the best, because it was happening then and there, in the din, in the politics, in the life. With dispossession, he was a very successful lawyer in South Africa, but when he came to India, he left everything. And when he came here, he saw the amount of poverty which people were living in. So, first thing he did was a great empathetic act that he was a master of. He said, I cannot provide things to everybody, so I will leave it. Now, people may call it a hypocrisy, a fraud, but look at it. There was no television at that time, there was no mobile, newspapers were less. How do you convey that I care for you? These days it's easy, you come and give a speech, whether you care or you don't care, you live a different lifestyle. But Gandhi was not one of the people. He came down to the level where people were thriving. So, now look at it, the points of transformation. When he wrote a letter to father, not to lie, the untouchability of his friend kept triggering him till he transformed the whole thing. He got the temples open for it. Keeping accountability and persistence. When he was thrown out from the train, that night a decision to stay back and fight. He could have taken next steamer and came back to India, or he may have said just suffered the life of insult which other Indians were living. But he stayed there the whole night, and that night something happened. Till that time Gandhi was running away from things. Then came Champaran when he came back to India, or even before that, leaving all his property and becoming dispossessed, trying to become like other Indians live. Had it been a drama or a fraud, it could have sustained for few months and few years, and he would have gone back to living his luxurious life. But it continued till he died. He does not possess a house in this country. None of his sons he made into vice chancellors or professors or administrative jobs. In fact, he is being blamed for this, that not being a good father. But imagine, he would not be talking about Gandhi had he done all this. So, these were the transformations. So, transformation is not a one-off incident like a change can be. A change can be a one-off incident. Happen, move on, another change comes. Transformation is an ongoing process, and Gandhi's model shows it the best. Whatever he initiated a transformation, he did not leave the streak of it. It kept increasing in its dimension and complexity, mixing up with other points of transformation. So, it was almost like it changed here, it went to one level, something changed here, another level, but all these were connected. So, that harmonization of life, of the need of cognition and emotion, continued in Gandhi's case. How did he do this? He had this, all of us have this need for experimentation and urge for experimentation. Gandhi made it a tool, and very consciously, because after a certain point of time in life, whatever he used to say, the way he used to wear, he was conscious of what he is doing. So, he had a great economy of words. He had the courage to fail. Any lesser leader who would have started a civil disobedience movement would have continued in spite of the violence in Chori Chora. But Gandhi did not. He took the movement back, and because he said that I believe in non-violence, and if people do it, I am not going to do it, and the country listened to him. Beyond this, decision making and acceptance, in spite of people not agreeing to him, not arguing with him or not following the what he has said, Gandhi never had a rejection for anybody, and this is very well recorded. Even with the sworn enemy, he used to, that is why his enemy also praised him. Sworn enemies, he would praise them. Now, political differences and the political interpretations of it is different, which we all read these days a lot. Gandhi bashing has become a fashion. But again I said, don't bother about the politics. Look at whatever he had decided and how he pursued to transform himself. All of us can do it, not necessarily what Gandhi was doing, but what we decide in our lives, we can use the same process, the content may be differing. Decision making, he would not, first he would not agree to anything. Once he agreed, he would not change his mind and decide in the best way. For him, he used to say that it is important that whatever decision we take should be not for majority, because majority may be 51%, minority may be 49%, does not make a sense. So, all decisions should, the beneficiary should be the last person standing. But what he stood was for autonomy. Some people call him anarchist, and but his mind worked on what the freedom of mind, and he said that autonomy to survive and freedom to live and decide is a prerogative of everybody. Had biology been this biology, neuroscience which we know had been there, we would have easily been able to explain all this. That if empathy is there with everybody, everybody has a choice to relate to people, everybody has a choice to improve their life and to improve the life of others, everybody has a autonomy to will and decide, and people should do it. So, that means he was telling people about a very, very higher cognitive ability, freedom of thought and action, but he also warned them that it should be beneficial to most. Do not follow Gandhi, find out your own truth. What Buddha said, up Deepo Bhav, be your own light. It may be a sounding like a spiritual sentence, but all transformation, all your thought, all your emotion, all your societal pressure, all your need, everything actually boils down to this. Otherwise, what else is life for? And once you decide, you have to do the consistent hammering we were talking about. So, as I said, till the last man, beyond oneself, giving rather than taking, and action. So, how could you do it? How could you do this? And he was pretty successful in what he decided to do. Even the politics was successful for some time, and later on our situation changed. How could you do this? He had this process of connectedness, inclusiveness, and details of life as a continuity. For him, everything was one connected whole, and he wanted to say, look at life as a one continuous whole and not fragmented, disjointed actions. And when being connected did not being connected on my own, it is inclusive for all. So, was he talking already of a universal mind, of a consciousness that was continuous in everybody? So, when you are not looking at life in a fragmented way, when you are looking at a continuity in your life and this being continuous with the next person, with the next person, with the next person, the details of life are continuous between your life and my life and somebody else's life. The social impact, the everything seems to be now falling into place, and that is what he had a model for society also. He said, develop villages into a honeycomb structure, have few nodal cities, and then the whole thing will be a big strong honeycomb structure. When the villages individual to the country should be autonomous in thinking and as self independent as it could be. Each village as an independent unit would connect in trade to the other, then to the other, and it would be a great honeycomb structure. But the baseline again started from this word called empathy. So, the biggest technique which he used, and I think this is one of the important thing when we want to transform anything. You forget Gandhi, you have to immerse into it. And keep innovating. The important thing is, unless you immerse into it, because Gandhi's conscious decision would not have survived societal pressure had he not been tweaking with his mind 24 into 7, and that requires a total immersion. Once you immerse into your whatever decisions you have taken, your mind will keep aware of it. Now you can relate the neuroscience. If whatever self has formed under the experiential inputs, your needs get altered, your emotional layering gets altered, your decision making gets altered, and you keep getting this 500 milliseconds of snapshots of reality or short stories within of minutes and so on. And if the action does not take you to your desired goal, the feedback loop will create frustration. Again you do not achieve, again do not allow this deeper negative emotions to come, like anger, like violence, like lust. Not that Gandhi did not have it, till a very late age, till 25 or something, maybe 30, he was a very volatile man, very restless, very volatile, and especially in his relationship with Kasturba, and not physically violent, but with every lesson he learnt, and he practiced non-violence in every minute. We'll talk about it. Once he said, I'll live like this, he immersed himself into it. He said, I live like villagers, he immersed into. So unless we immerse into whatever we have decided, and the important thing we talked about when we were talking of addiction, that one has to learn to delay gratification. The frontal cortex and dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, were they more developed in Mahatma Gandhi is something we do not know, we have not preserved his brain. The equality came from dignity of labor. These were the conversions in behavior of the thought process of the connectedness which he had seen, self respect, as I said, waiting for your own turn, that fear somehow he had transgressed. But he was, the greatest thing was master of empathy. He somehow got into his head that all human beings belong to me and I belong to human beings. This country is mine, this countrymen are mine. So even when death came in the form of bullets, he was not angry. It is written and recorded that when people used to go, even curse him, abuse him, insult him, he would not shake. He has brought to his mind that any impulse or this snapshot of reality which is frustrating, which is making me angry, if it comes to my head, I will either ignore it or counter it with a positive thought that this is okay, this person is what I am. And if the other person is like what you are, obviously there is not going to be any violence. Wherever he used to go, fearlessly he used to go to northwest frontier, which was a very violent area. Fearlessly he used to counter his adversaries, and this is not Gandhi who has written about himself, there are people who have observed. So, this master of empathy is the real game. In fact, of late some of us have started calling mirror neurons as Gandhi neurons. We will stop at this and just continue this in the next lecture and look at this empathy as a process of larger transformation. Thank you.